Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the Monday Night Raw review. And this was the go-home show for Money in the Bank, which is this Sunday. And it was also the final Monday Night Raw inside the Thunderdome. Next week for Monday Night Raw, there's going to be live fans in attendance, which I am looking forward to seeing the live fans back. And Monday Night Raw tonight, as usual, this show fucking sucked. It was a complete disaster, and it was a taped show. It was a taped show, Monday Night Raw tonight, because they had to just film one more Raw in the Thunderdome. So, bye-bye to the Thunderdome, and we don't have to see any more of these fans on an LED board going, yeah, whoa, like that. We don't have to see none of that anymore. I mean, the Thunderdome, it was a good concept, but as it progressed, as the pandemic started slowing down, as of now, I'm like, it's time to get rid of the Thunderdome. It really is. We need to have live fans back in attendance, and not just for WrestleMania. They need to come back sooner. We got the live fans for both nights at WrestleMania, and then after WrestleMania, we went back to the Thunderdome, and I'm like, they should have had fans back in attendance after WrestleMania. I don't know why we went back to the Thunderdome. But the Thunderdome is going away. This was the last time on Monday Night Raw that we're going to see the Thunderdome. And SmackDown from this past week was also the final SmackDown inside the Thunderdome. So beginning on Friday, we're going to have live fans in attendance for SmackDown. And I can't wait to see it. And of course, live fans back for Money in the Bank also. So really happy to see the fans back in attendance. But Monday Night Raw tonight, this show fucking sucked. It was a complete disaster. It was boring. And do you all realize that this was a go-home show? It didn't even feel like a go-home show. But Monday Night Raw's ratings. I gotta talk about the ratings for Monday Night Raw from last week. Monday Night Raw's ratings last week were a 1.4. A 1.4. Now that explains no one is watching Raw. Nobody's watching the show. I can't wait until Raw gets a 1.0. I cannot wait for the day that happens. And I will be hysterically laughing. Because these shows fucking suck. And the ratings prove it. Oh my God. I can't wait for them to hit a 1.0. But what do we get on the show tonight? We had Xavier Woods versus Bobby Lashley. We had Ivar versus AJ Styles. Omos versus Erick. We had Ricochet versus John Morrison in a Falls Count Anywhere match. And we had in the main event, Rhea Ripley versus Natalya. Yeah, that was your main event for Monday Night Raw tonight. But we also had a main event segment, which was the VIP lounge with MVP and Bobby Lashley. But before I start the review, if you guys haven't checked out my previous video that I uploaded earlier today, I did a review of the Xavier 4K Ultimate Collector's Edition of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. So definitely go check out my review of that if you guys haven't seen it. But it's a really awesome edition of the film. It looks amazing on 4K. So definitely check out my review of that set if you guys haven't seen it. But let's get on with the review. So Monday Night Raw opened up tonight in the Thunderdome, the final Monday Night Raw in the Thunderdome. The show opened with Bobby Lashley versus Xavier Woods. So Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston, they ended up coming out first. And we saw MVP Bobby Lashley and his ladies backstage. So MVP hyped up Bobby Lashley before they end up heading out to the ring. Of course, this was a non-title match. So we had, Graves, Byron Saxton, and Jimmy Smith. They end up hyping up Kofi Kingston versus Bobby Lashley at Money in the Bank, which we all know that Kofi Kingston is not winning at Money in the Bank. It's not going to be Kofi Mania 2. So stop trying to think, oh, Kofi Kingston's going to win the title and it's going to be Kofi Mania 2. It's not happening. So we had Lashley coming into the ring. We had Pyro end up going off. So the match started with Bobby Lashley and Xavier Woods going back and forth. Woods end up delivering a super kick to Bobby Lashley in the corner. So Lashley ended up delivering a slam. Xavier Woods ended up reversing it into a tornado DDT, a nice tornado DDT. Xavier Woods then ran the ropes. He leapt over the top rope, which he took Bobby Lashley down on the floor. Woods ended up bringing Bobby Lashley back to the ring. Woods ended up dumping Lashley to the apron. So Xavier Woods then delivered a kick to Bobby Lashley's head from the apron. Xavier Woods then went to the top and he ended up hitting a missile drop kick to Bobby Lashley. Went for the cover, which Lashley kicked out too. Then Xavier Woods went right into locking in the crossface on Bobby Lashley. Lashley ends up powering out of the crossface, slammed Woods with a side slam. So Lashley was manhandling Xavier Woods. Woods ended up blocking the Dominator, but Lashley ended up coming right back and delivered a choke slam to Xavier Woods. So Lashley kept control of the match. He ended up running Xavier Woods head first into the ring post. So Lashley was waiting in the corner. He delivered a spear as Xavier Woods got right back up. So Lashley was standing over Xavier Woods. Woods ended up countering an attempt, and he ended up rolling up Bobby Lashley up for the pin. And there you go. Xavier Woods ended up winning the match. Post-match, we had Bobby Lashley. He was seething, and he was disappointed with what happened. Lashley ended up making his way out of the ring. He walked up the ramp. He went straight past MVP and his ladies. So Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston were taunting MVP as he looked on from the bottom of the ring. And that was that. But this was 50-50 booking here. Why are you having Bobby Lashley as a champion lose? You don't see WWE doing that with Roman Reigns on SmackDown. Why are they doing it to Bobby Lashley? The champion should not be losing. Should not be losing any matches. 50-50 booking right here. And this just proves right here that Kofi Kingston is not going to be winning at Money in the Bank. Which, like I said before, Kofi Kingston is not winning. So the people are saying, oh, he's going to win. Kofi Kingston's going to win at Money in the Bank. And it's going to be Kofi Mania 2 again. Not going to happen. So get that out of your heads. So then we saw MVP backstage. Kevin Patrick ended up stopping MVP. And he ended up saying that Bobby Lashley was seen leaving the Thunderdome. So MVP ended up admitting that Bobby Lashley ended up leaving. But he ended up saying that it's not a big deal, like everyone is making it out to be. And MVP ended up telling Kevin Patrick that he guarantees Bobby Lashley will be in the VIP lounge later on. So MVP ended up insisting that Lashley will be just fine. So that was that. But overall, forgot to mention Xavier Woods versus Bobby Lashley. It was an okay match. So then we saw footage of Jinder Mahal arriving to the Thunderdome on his motorcycle. Just like what we saw last week. You know, Jinder Mahal trying to be cool, riding a motorcycle. So Veer and Shanky, his two buddies, they end up giving Jinder Drew McIntyre's sword. And Jinder was looking it over, and that was basically that. So then we went to Alexa Bliss backstage for Alexa's Playground. And she was sitting on her swing. Alexa ended up talking about how exciting Monday Night Raw is. Huh? How exciting Monday Night Raw is? Look at the show every single week. This show is absolutely fucking terrible. How? It's not exciting. Excited. How Raw is exciting. Give me a break. So she ended up saying that she looks to possibly win the Money in the Bank briefcase and the kind of fun she can have with the contract. So then we had Eva Marie. Yeah, you all know how this segment turned out. So Eva Marie ended up interrupting. She was sitting on the swing next to Alexa. She had Doudrop, Piper Niven, or Doudrop sitting behind Eva Marie. So Eva wanted to be introduced. Alexa Bliss ended up going on about how she likes Doudrop's name. So they ended up laughing about it. She's like, oh, what's your name again? And then she's like, Doudrop. Oh, I love that name. What's the name again? Doudrop. Awful and cringe. So Eva Marie wasn't too thrilled about Alexa Bliss and Doudrop going back and forth. So Bliss ended up asking Doudrop a question to describe her time on Monday Night Raw in one word. So Eva Marie then interrupted. She goes on taking credit for everything, including the match last week. Taking credit for doing nothing and being on the outside as always. Because she's a shitty wrestler. So Alexa Bliss ended up calling Eva Marie a bonus guest. And that she's not happy with that idea. Because she's the star of Monday Night Raw. And that she's a headliner. The star of Monday Night Raw? Are you kidding me? Eva Marie should be the star of Monday Night Raw catering. Because that's where she belongs. So Eva Marie ended up going on, and she ends up calling this a dingy, dirty, grubby little playground. She ends up saying that she can see why Alexa Bliss only invited Doudrop. So Eva Marie ended up calling on Doudrop to leave with her. She ended up saying that the evolution, more like the Borlution, deserves so much better. So Doudrop ended up waving at Alexa Bliss, and she walked off behind Eva Marie. Alexa Bliss was mocking Eva Marie, and that was that. But this was so fucking awful. This was cringe. Just very awful. Eva Marie calling herself the star of Monday Night Raw, and that she's a headliner. Get the hell out of here. So then we saw Jinder Mahal. He was in the ring. It was great. We go from Eva Marie to Jinder Mahal. God help us all. So Jinder Mahal was in the ring. You have saying that he's reflected this past week and that he took things too far with Drew McIntyre last week, even though McIntyre has always taken from him. So Jinder ended up going on, and he ended up saying that he wants to extend an olive branch. So he ended up calling McIntyre out to the ring so that he could apologize to McIntyre and shake his hand and give him his sword back. So McIntyre then appeared on the screen. McIntyre ended up saying that he wants Jinder to cut through the BS and get to the point, because he knows Jinder is a decorated champion, but also a liar. Yeah, we all want to forget Jinder Mahal as the WWE champion when he was the champion in 2017 and basically killed SmackDown when he was on there. We all want to forget that. He was the worst fucking WWE champion of all time. So Jinder ended up saying that he wanted to do this in person, but he was like, so be it, to McIntyre. So Jinder had a table. There was a table in the ring with a red cover on it. He ended up saying that he sent Veer and Shanky to have McIntyre's sword refinished. So Jinder ended up removing the cover, the cloth, and it was revealed that the sword has been broken. So Jinder ended up apologizing. He ended up saying that something must have happened. So McIntyre ended up saying that you can't expect to show up to Monday Night Raw with something and not expect to have your stuff destroyed. So McIntyre ended up revealing that he has the real sword. And he ended up saying that the sword that was in the ring is a replica. So he then reveals that he has Jinder's motorcycle with him. But you all know right there, you know that that motorcycle was going to get destroyed by McIntyre, and he ended up destroying it. McIntyre started destroying the motorcycle. So McIntyre ended up mocking Jinder. He ended up saying that it's nothing like a little elbow grease can't fix. So McIntyre then kicked the motorcycle over and he walked off. And that was that. So Jinder Mahal was showing the ring. He was seething. But who cares? Who cares? And already I saw that they have a toy, which is a toy of Jinder's motorcycle. So they only did that. Drew McIntyre only destroyed the motorcycle just to promote that toy. And there's a picture of it. I saw the picture of it online. So but that was that. But this was awful. And then we had, stand back. There's a butterfly coming through. Nikki Ash. Nikki Ash was backstage. Matt Riddle ended up walking up to her. And he ended up giving her props for her new superhero gear. I'm sorry. Nikki Ash in this superhero gimmick is just an embarrassment to her. So Riddle ended up wondering why she can't use her powers and fly up to snatch the Money in the Bank briefcase. So Nikki ended up saying that she loves superheroes as much as the next person, but she's just almost a superhero, and that there's no flying just yet. So Nikki was like, oh, it's time for me to do my match. And she ended up saying that it's time to fly. So Riddle ended up saying that he thought she said she couldn't fly. This is awful. I mean, Matt Riddle, he's the only best thing on Monday Night Raw, in my opinion. So then we had Nikki Ash versus Asuka versus Naomi versus Alexa Bliss. This was a fatal four-way. Match was awful. Match was boring. Nikki Cross ended up coming out first. And then Asuka. We had a promo from earlier in the day where Asuka was ranting about Money in the Bank and how no champion will be ready for her when she wins the Money in the Bank contract. And then we had Naomi end up coming out, and then Alexa Bliss came out last. So the bell ended up ringing. Naomi ended up drop kicking Nikki and Asuka out to the floor. She ended up running Alexa into the corner and delivered some shoulders. So she ended up unloading in the corner to Alexa Bliss. Alexa Bliss ended up slapping Naomi out of the corner, ended up hitting a crossbody, went for the cover, which Naomi ended up kicking out too. So Asuka ended up coming back in, and Cross and Naomi end up doing a tangle for a quick pin attempt. And there was a point where Eva Marie and Doudrop end up walking down the ramp. So Alexa Bliss and Nikki Ash end up staring them down. Naomi end up attacking Nikki Ash. Asuka end up taking out Naomi. So Alexa Bliss ended up dropping Asuka with a DT. Went for the cover, which Asuka kicked out at 2. So Bliss ended up sitting up in the middle of the ring. She waved that Doudrop. Eva Marie didn't like that. So Bliss ended up exiting the ring. Eva ended up pushing Doudrop towards Alexa. So Doudrop was very nervous. She ended up saying some stuff to Alexa Bliss. Bliss ended up patting Doudrop on her shoulder. She walked right past Doudrop and stalked Eva Marie up the ramp. And Eva Marie was pleading to Alexa Bliss. And just like last week, Alexa ended up screaming at Eva Marie to make her jump. Well, last week, when Alexa Bliss ended up screaming at Eva Marie, she just went out of the ring. So Doudrop ended up making a save. She ended up attacking Alexa Bliss. So Doudrop ended up scooping up Alexa Bliss on her shoulders. She ended up ramming Alexa into the barricade, and she ended up sending Alexa Bliss over the other side of the barricade. So Eva Marie and Doudrop end up walking over. They end up looking down at the floor, and Alexa Bliss was nowhere to be seen. So Eva Marie was yelling at Doudrop. She was like, "Where's Lexi? Where's Lexi?" And so Monday Night Raw went to commercial. Then when Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, we had Asuka end up dropping Nikki Ash. She then bulldogs Naomi. And Alexa Bliss just disappeared before we went to the commercial. So Alexa Bliss wasn't back in this match. So we had, at the end of the match, Asuka ended up blocking another pin attempt. She ended up going for the Asuka lock on Nikki Ash. Nikki Ash ended up fighting it off. And Nikki Ash ended up countering the Asuka lock into a pin. So there you go. Nikki Ash ended up winning the match. Overall, this match was terrible. This match was boring. I mean, Nikki Ash, you might as well call her Nikki Ash Ketchum. She's catching Pokemon. That's what her name feels like. Her last name feels like, with the Ash. Yeah, her new gimmick is an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment to the Raw Women's Division, which is god-awful either way. So then we saw Erick and Ivar. They were backstage with Sarah Schreiber. Sarah Schreiber ended up asking the both of them about their singles matches tonight and their title shot next week on Monday Night Raw. Ivar was ripping Styles. He ended up dismissing his idea of how Vikings are. He ended up saying that Styles will learn to respect the Viking Raiders tonight. So Erick ended up talking about finding a crack in the mighty armor of Omos, and that this will be his first solo battle on Monday Night Raw. So they end up saying that they look forward to once again win the Raw Tag Team titles. So Erick and Ivar, they both walked off. They were chanting "Raid," and that was that. And then we had AJ Styles and Omos. They end up making their way out. Styles ended up coming into the ring, started posing as Monday Night Raw went to commercial. And then when Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, Styles was on the mic. He had kind of promo on Erick and Ivar, the Viking Raiders. And he was blaming them for how he lost his spot in the Money in the Bank. Styles ended up going on, and Erick and Ivar end up coming out. So the promo that Styles ended up cutting was awful, in my opinion. So we had Styles versus Ivar. Match started. Styles ended up attacking Ivar. Delivered a chop to Ivar, and it did nothing to him. Ivar ended up overpowering on Styles. He ended up dropping Styles in the corner. Ivar delivered a cannonball, and he rolled up Styles for a 2 count. Styles was trying to mount some offense, but Ivar ended up leveling him. Omos was shown trying to interfere from the floor. The referee ended up catching Omos, started yelling at him, which Styles then took advantage of the distraction, and he delivered a kick to Ivar from behind. Styles then missed a kick from the back, and Ivar ended up hanging on. So Styles was grounding Ivar as Omos was looking on. Ivar ended up sending Styles flying with a back body drop. So Ivar delivered a slam in the middle of the ring, and then a crossbody splash to Styles on the mat. At the end of the match, we had Styles end up nailing the Pele kick to stun Ivar in the corner. Ivar came right out of the corner and delivered a seated splash to Styles, went for the cover, and there you go. Ivar ended up winning the match. Overall, this match was just meh, in my opinion. So, post-match, Omos was shown yelling at Erick from ringside, and then Monday Night Raw went into commercial. Then when Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, we had Omos versus Erick. And this match was just meh, in my opinion. This was not a good match. So the match ended up starting. We had Erick end up going behind Omos, and he couldn't lift Omos off his feet. Omos ended up tossing Erick. Erick then ducked some shots, started unloaded with some kicks and punches, which Omos ended up shoving him away. Omos then ended up leveling Erick with a shot. Erick ended up escaping a slam attempt from Omos, ended up kicking Omos' knee from behind. Omos then ended up running to a boot in the corner. Omos then ended up catching Erick and locked in the bear hug in the middle of the ring. Erick ended up trying to fight out of the bear hug, and he ended up dazing Omos a bit. Omos ended up dropping him to the mat. So at the end of the match, we had Styles end up yelling at Omos to finish on Erick. Omos then picked Erick up for a 2-handed chokeslam in the middle of the ring. Omos ended up covering Erick, and there you go. Omos ended up winning the match. Well, overall, this match was not good. This match was terrible, in my opinion. It was just meh. And as I keep looking at Omos when he's in the ring, Omos is giving me vibes of the Great Khali. And that's not a good thing. Omos, in my opinion, he's the next Great Khali when you look at him. But that's my opinion. And then we had Sheamus backstage. Sheamus was wearing a new face mask because of his nose. So he was backstage with Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville. So Sheamus ended up saying apparently Pearce and Deville left him a voicemail telling him to show up and defend the United States Championship. So Sheamus was seething because he's here and he has to defend the United States Championship. So Sonya Deville ended up asking if they're all on the same page now. Sheamus then agreed with Sonya Deville. So he ended up walking off, and commentators, Corey Graves, Saxton, Jimmy Smith, they ended up hyping Sheamus' match because Sheamus is going to be facing Humberto Carrillo. And we all know Humberto Carrillo is the one who broke Sheamus' nose a few weeks back. So then we had the New Day, Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston. They end up getting greeted by the Lucha House Party backstage. So Lince Dorado and Gran Metalik, they end up telling the New Day that they are working on a SummerSlam party to the New Day. So that was what Lucha House Party had to say. Then we saw Sarah Schreiber. She ended up walking up to Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston. She ended up telling Xavier Woods and Kofi that Bobby Lashley has returned to the Thunderdome after leaving it earlier. So Kofi ended up going on about how he will shock the world once again at Money in the Bank and leave with the WWE Championship. You're not winning the championship. So the New Day end up walking off, and that was that. But Kofi thinks he's winning the title on Sunday at Money in the Bank. He's not winning, like I said. It's not going to be Kofi Mania 2. So then we went backstage, and we saw Sheamus. Sheamus was attacking Humberto Carrillo. So he had officials try to break the both of them up. Sheamus ended up swinging at them to back them off. Sheamus then tossed Humberto Carrillo into a bunch of poles. Sheamus then yelled at the officials and started taunting Carrillo. So he ended up walking off. He ended up stopping to exchange a look with Damian Priest. So Damian Priest came over, and Damian Priest and officials ended up checking on Humberto Carrillo as Monday Night Raw went to commercial. Then, when Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, Humberto Carrillo ended up telling Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville that if he can stand, he can fight, and that he's fighting for the United States Championship. So Humberto Carrillo ended up walking off with Damian Priest, who was by his side. Sheamus was waiting in the ring, and out came Humberto Carrillo. And when he came out, he was still selling the attack from backstage. So this was just a squash match. The referee ended up checking on Humberto Carrillo. Humberto got up to his feet, and match started. Sheamus immediately leveled Humberto Carrillo with a bro kick, and Sheamus went for the cover. There you go. Sheamus won the match, retaining the United States Championship. Post-match, Sheamus ended up coming back over as Humberto Carrillo was being tended to on the mat. Sheamus then manhandled Humberto Carrillo some more. He was threatening to break Humberto Carrillo's nose. So Damian Priest ended up running down. He ended up making the save. Sheamus then retreated to the stage, raised the United States Championship in the air. So Damian Priest ended up helping Humberto Carrillo up, and he was staring Sheamus down. Well, it looks like we may get a match. Sheamus versus Damian Priest for the United States Championship. And maybe Damian Priest might be the one to take the United States Championship from Sheamus. But overall, this was a squash match with Sheamus and Humberto Carrillo. And then we saw Ricochet backstage. Ricochet was backstage with Matt Riddle. They ended up saying that they're both looking forward to Money in the Bank. So Matt Riddle ended up mentioning how he misses his buddy, his tag partner, Randy Orton. Matt Riddle ended up mentioning how he wants to win the Money in the Bank briefcase and cash it in on the Raw Tag Team titles with Randy Orton. He wants to be Raw Tag Team champions with Randy Orton. So Ricochet ended up saying that he's got some surprises for John Morrison in their Falls Count Anywhere match, which Morrison won't see coming. So Morrison then appeared. He was pushing The Miz, and The Miz is still in the wheelchair. So Miz ended up spraying Riddle and Ricochet with the dipstick, not calling it the dripstick, the dipstick. And he ran over Matt Riddle's injured foot. So Riddle ended up telling Ricochet that they're going down, that both Miz and John Morrison are going down. So that was that. And then we had Ricochet versus John Morrison in the Falls Count Anywhere match. This was the only best match on Raw tonight. This was a very good match, even though this is their third match that they had. You know, a few weeks ago, they had that match where Ricochet ended up going off the top rope and delivered that crossbody to Morrison on the barricade, which that match ended in a double countout. And then last week on Raw, John Morrison ended up winning the match because the Miz ended up blocking Ricochet from getting in the ring because Miz was just blocking Ricochet with his wheelchair to not let Ricochet get back in the ring. So John Morrison ended up winning. So then we had this match tonight, which like I said, it was a good match. It was the only best match on Raw tonight. So the match ended up starting with Ricochet and Morrison trading shots on the apron. Morrison ended up sending Ricochet out to the floor with a neckbreaker from the apron. Morrison then delivered a 2 count on the floor to Ricochet in front of The Miz in his wheelchair. Morrison ended up kicking Ricochet while he was down, as Morrison and The Miz were both taunting Ricochet. Morrison then pinned Ricochet on the floor using The Miz and his chair for the leverage. Morrison then delivered a kick against the barricade while Ricochet was down. So Morrison ended up holding Ricochet's head against the barricade and then delivered a kick for a 2 count. Morrison ended up bringing Ricochet back into the ring, and he still kept control of the match. So Morrison ended up trying to go for a Starship Pain, but it got intercepted by Ricochet. Ricochet ended up turning the Starship Pain into a Bridget German suplex, which looked cool. And he went for the cover, which Morrison kicked out at 2. Morrison then ended up sending Ricochet out to the floor with a sweep through the ropes. Morrison then ended up delivering a close 2 count to Ricochet on the outside. Morrison then sent Ricochet into the barricade and tossed him into the LED screens in the with the crowd on them. Ricochet ended up countering and ended up sending Morrison face first into the LED screens. So they were going back and forth. They were using the barricade. Morrison ended up going down hard. Ricochet then delivered a 450 from the top of the barricade out to the floor, which looked awesome. So Ricochet went for the cover, which Morrison ended up kicking out at 2. So Morrison and Ricochet, they were brawling in a gorilla position. Morrison ended up super kicking Ricochet. Morrison delivered some kicks and a running knee while Ricochet was sitting in a chair. So Ricochet then turned his attention to The Miz. Ricochet ended up grabbing The Miz's wheelchair. Ricochet ended up shoving The Miz's wheelchair down the ramp. Ricochet ended up taking Morrison down for a 2 count. And we saw Ricochet was looking to capitalize on Morrison. Miz ended up squirting Ricochet with the dipstick. Morrison ended up trying to steal a pin. Ricochet ended up kicking out. So Matt Riddle, ended up riding down on his scooter. And Riddle ended up placing The Miz's wheelchair on its back, which left The Miz kicking his legs in the air. So Riddle ended up laying down next to him. He was mocking The Miz, which was funny. So Ricochet ended up dropping John Morrison with the recoil. And Ricochet then knocked Morrison over the top rope to the ladder bridge from the apron to the commentary table. Ricochet ended up going to the top turnbuckle, and he ended up putting Morrison through the ladder. And Ricochet ended up crawling Morrison over, and he covers him. And there you go. Ricochet ended up winning the match. Overall, this was the best match on Raw tonight. This was the only good match tonight. It was match of the night, in my opinion. Really enjoyed this match. So then we saw Sarah Schreiber. Sarah Schreiber interviewed Natalya and Tamina, the Women's Tag Team Champions. Natalya ended up telling Sarah Schreiber that she plans to make history by beating Rhea Ripley for the Raw Women's Championship, win the Money in the Bank briefcase, and then cashing it in to win the SmackDown Women's Championship. So Tamina ended up hearing Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke, and they were both in the room, next to them. So Natalya and Tamina end up confronting Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose, and they have words, and they were looking to win the straps, win the titles. So Tamina ended up shoving Dana Brooke. They end up walking off. Mandy ended up holding Dana Brooke back. And that was that. But who cares? Who cares about this? So then we had Drew McIntyre backstage with Kevin Patrick. And Drew McIntyre was saying to Kevin Patrick how he will win the Money in the Bank briefcase on Sunday. And now he's going on to win the WWE Championship. He's going to win the WWE Championship back, saying this might be his last chance to reach the top of the mountain. So that was what Drew McIntyre had to say. But if Drew McIntyre wins the briefcase on Sunday, he will without a doubt be booed out of the building by fans, if that happens. And then we saw Sarah Schreiber backstage with Rhea Ripley. Sarah Schreiber was asking Rhea Ripley about her match with Natalya and why she accepted it. Rhea Ripley ended up saying that she doesn't back down from a challenge. She then addressed Charlotte. She ended up calling Charlotte a drama queen. Rhea Ripley ended up saying that when she beats Charlotte Sunday at Money in the Bank, she's going to give Charlotte a real reason to need crutches. There you go. But who cares about this Rhea Ripley-Charlotte feud? I don't care. So now we have Rhea Ripley versus Natalya. This was boring. This was awful. Match started with them locking up. Rhea Ripley ended up taking Natalya down by her arm. They started tangling. Natalya ended up rolling Rhea Ripley up for a 2 count. They ended up running the ropes. Rhea Ripley ended up putting the brakes on Natalya. They ended up facing off as Tamina, was applauding. There was a point where Rhea Ripley ended up running around the ring. She ended up leaping with a drop kick to Natalya, but Natalya moved out of the way. Rhea Ripley then took Tamina down on the floor instead. which led Natalya to deliver a discus clothesline, and she leveled Rhea Ripley at ringside. So at the end of the match, we had Rhea Ripley hit the Riptide to Natalya in the middle of the ring. And there you go. Rhea Ripley ended up winning the match. Post-match, Charlotte ended up coming into the ring. She did a chop block to take Rhea Ripley down. So Charlotte ended up applying the figure 4, and she was hanging off the edge of the apron to stretch Rhea Ripley's knee. Rhea Ripley ended up breaking the figure 4. She was talking trash in Charlotte's face as she tried to recover. So Charlotte was then taunting Rhea Ripley as Rhea Ripley ended up clutching her leg while she was down. And that was that. But overall, this match was terrible. Match was awful. This was the main event to the show. But then we had the main event segment, the VIP lounge with MVP and Bobby Lashley. And then we had MVP backstage with Bobby Lashley's ladies. And he ended up piping the ladies up to take care of Bobby Lashley and do whatever he needs or wants and cater to his needs. MVP ended up saying that they are all on the same page. So that was that. Then we saw Sarah Schreiber. Sarah Schreiber ended up stopping Charlotte backstage. Sarah ended up asking Charlotte if what we just saw is a preview of what we're going to see at Money in the Bank on Sunday. Charlotte ended up saying that she learned from the dirtiest player in the game. And the fans in Fort Worth will realize the game is over on Sunday. So that was what Charlotte had to say, but I don't care about Charlotte and Rhea Ripley. This whole feud fucking sucks. So we had the main event segment, the VIP lounge with MVP. MVP was in the ring with Lashley's ladies. He kept saying that he welcomes us to a very special edition of the VIP lounge. He wanted to say that this is somewhat bittersweet because it's the final Raw in the Thunderdome. So MVP ended up going on about how they have dominated in the Thunderdome so much that he's called the Thunderdome the Lashley Dome. So MVP ended up plugging the return to Turin, and he ended up introducing Bobby Lashley. So he was introducing Bobby Lashley. There was no sign of him. MVP tried to introduce Bobby Lashley again, but he didn't come out. MVP then tried again, and this time MVP ended up asking Lashley's ladies to help him and bring him out. So they did, and out came Bobby Lashley. Lashley was not in a happy mood after losing to Xavier Woods earlier in the night. So he had his tie loose. He was not wearing his jacket. So MVP ended up asking Lashley if he's all right. MVP ended up telling the ladies to give him a back rub and go get him a drink. So Lashley then interrupted. He ended up saying to MVP that he has had enough. So Lashley then excused his ladies, and he ended up telling them that he needs to talk to MVP alone. Lashley ended up saying that he doesn't even want the woman here. Lashley ended up saying that he's been thinking of what Kofi Kingston said. He ended up saying that he wasn't just getting in Lashley's head, and that he was right about MVP making him soft and causing him to lose his edge. He went on about how he lost to Xavier Woods when he should have let Kofi and Woods in a pile of bones. He ended up saying that he's furious, and that MVP is trying to cheer him up with woman and champagne. Lashley goes on to say that he appreciates what MVP has done, but it has to stop, and adds back to business. So Lashley ended up saying that the only enjoyment he wants for now on is destroying anyone who takes the WWE Championship. So then Lashley starts having a temper tantrum. He started destroying the VIP lounge, throwing the sofas, throwing the drinks out of the ring, throwing the small tables. So MVP then put a hand on Lashley's shoulder to calm him down, but Lashley ended up stopping MVP, ended up telling him to get back. So Lashley was then destroying more of the VIP lounge. So Lashley was seated. He ended up looking at MVP. He then picked the mic back up. Lashley ended up looking straight ahead. He ended up telling Kofi that he's going to do what he should have done weeks ago, and that is tear him in half. Lashley ended up saying that he's going into Money in the Bank as the almighty WWE Champion, and that he's going to leave Money in the Bank the almighty WWE Champion. He ended up saying that he hopes Kofi brings his friends, family, and the whole WWE Universe to have his back, because he is going to dismantle him and do everything he said he will. Lashley wanted to say that he hopes Kofi is ready to fight for the title and his life. Lashley wanted to say that he hopes Kofi is ready to fight for the title and his life. Lashley wanted to say that he's going to break Kofi's skull and hurt his neck, but what's left of his body, and put whatever left of his body in a box and send it to the circus with the rest of the little clowns. Lashley ended up saying that the circus is dead, and after Sunday, so is Kofi's career. So Lashley's music ended up coming on. He ended up grabbing the WWE Championship. MVP was watching. He was shocked. And that was how Monday Night Raw went off the air tonight. The go-home show for Money in the Bank for Monday Night Raw ended. Overall, this was an okay segment. Overall, Monday Night Raw, just as always, this show was terrible. The show was god-awful. The only match that was good tonight was the Falls Count Anywhere match between Morrison and Ricochet. But anyways, that's it for the Monday Night Raw review. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and I will see you all for AEW Dynamite on Wednesday. So until then, see you all Wednesday night for Dynamite.